Thank you so much for clicking on this True Reviews today. I'm really excited to share some thoughts about the movie Dunkirk, which just came out recently, which was written and directed by Christopher Nolan. And I wanted to share my thoughts on this movie, and I know my thoughts might be a little bit divisive. So I'd love to hear your comments and hear what you guys thought of the movie as well, so we can kind of engage in a discussion about this film. Because my thoughts might not necessarily be exactly what you thought, because this movie is filmed very interestingly. Oftentimes World War II movies can kind of suffer from having a lack of tension because you know how things are going to end. And I'm really glad that Christopher Nolan wrote this movie as well as directed it, because he is excellent at building tension. There's a lot of really great things in this movie. The acting, in particular by Mark Rylance, who actually won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor recently for his role in Bridge of Spies, he does incredible. He's one of the civilians who decides to sail to take his boat to Dunkirk so that he can pick up some soldiers. The structure of the film is very different, and it takes a minute to kind of understand what's going on as we focus on three different storylines. There's a focus on two pilots, one played by Tom Hardy. That poor guy is going to be wearing a mask, I think, in every movie he's going to be in. But that's one of the storylines. Another storyline is the soldiers on the beach waiting to be rescued. And then the third storyline follows Mark Rylance and his son and his son's friend as they sail to Dunkirk as civilians, trying to help in any way that they can. And the way that these three stories converge, without kind of getting too much into detail, the way that these three stories converge and the way the climax happens is masterful. I cannot praise the storytelling and the structure of this movie enough, because it is incredible. And I cannot believe, as far as I know, it's the only movie I've seen that has a structure this way. Again, don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil that for anyone, because it truly is an enjoyable thing to watch unfold. The sense of realism in Dunkirk is incredible as well. All the special effects were done practically. They used actual planes and boats, and when they sunk a boat, it was a real boat that was built to make it look like it was a World War II ship that they sunk, and the actors had to be jumping and diving into the water, and they filmed it on location in Dunkirk. And you could tell that Christopher Nolan had such a love for this moment in history, and he really wanted to capture it as best he could. And one of the things that's interesting about Dunkirk is oftentimes with a World War II movie, we experience the event of the war, or maybe that specific battle in World War II, through the character's perspective. We're seeing this event unfold through the eyes of another person. And Dunkirk is all about the event. And I do really like that idea. It makes it very real. There's little to no dialogue in this movie, especially between those soldiers on the beach, which makes perfect sense, because what would these soldiers have to talk about? They're just waiting to be rescued. They can actually see England from the beaches of Dunkirk, but it's just far enough out of reach that they can't get there. And there isn't much that they would be talking about. They wouldn't be talking about their home lives and how they want to be a school teacher, or how they've got a girlfriend waiting for them back home. That's just not something that would happen. And I like that Christopher Nolan took that approach. He throws you right into it. He doesn't give you any sort of build up. He just throws you right into it. His whole idea was that he wanted to take the third act of a war movie and make it his whole movie. And it's easily his shortest movie at about an hour and 40 minutes. It's a very tight hour and 40 minutes. I didn't think that there was anything that should have been cut out of it. Now, this sense of realism and the idea that Christopher Nolan wanted to focus on the event rather than characters, I think a lot of people really enjoyed that. And I liked the idea, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it as much as another war film, because I like to connect to characters. And so for me, even though technically I thought this movie was absolutely incredible, and like I said, I can't praise that structure of the film enough, but the lack of connection to character was really difficult for me to really kind of care about what was going on to these young men. I didn't necessarily care too much about, other than Mark Rylance, who again I praised earlier. He's incredible. His storyline was great, and there was a lot of cool development, and you get some really cool backstory about Mark Rylance and kind of why he's getting involved so heavily, and it's really great stuff. And I would have loved to have seen that attention to character through with all the characters, or at least a select few rather than just the one, because that was something that I really felt was missing. And I know not everyone's going to feel that way. I completely understand enjoying this movie for the way it was filmed, and again, I can appreciate it till the cows come home. I think Christopher Nolan is a masterful director, probably one of the best of our time right now. And I don't want you to think that I didn't enjoy the movie, because I really did, but there's just that aspect just really I didn't care for. Another thing that really bothered me, and this is something that I pay attention to probably more often than the average moviegoer, is I really pay attention to the music of a movie. One of the first CDs I ever got was the soundtrack to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I think I got it for like my 11th birthday. And ever since then, I have been in love with movie soundtracks. And Hans Zimmer, who is one of the most prolific composers for movies right now, if not of all time, he did this soundtrack as he's done multiple other Christopher Nolan movies, but there was little to no music. It was more sound design than music, which was an interesting take, but as someone who loves the music of movies so much and how much emotion that music can bring, I found the sounds that were going on very distracting. And I wondered if maybe I just was kind of in a wrong place or something. So I actually went ahead and listened to the soundtrack later on in the week after we saw it, and I could barely listen to it. I just had a really hard time with that, and that was super disappointing to me, because I'm such a fan of Hans Zimmer and such a fan of what movie soundtracks can do. So all in all, I cannot praise Dunkirk enough for what it did, and I think it completely accomplished what it was trying to do, but it didn't necessarily work for me. I cannot praise the practical effects, which are way more rare than they are common in movies nowadays. I can't praise Christopher Nolan enough for using those practical effects and using real planes and hooking camera rigs up to planes in such interesting ways so that he was able to capture very realistic moments. I can't praise that realism enough and the structure of the film, but that lack of character really made it feel like there was something missing. So if I had to give this movie a score based on my enjoyment out of it, I would have given it about a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I loved the structure of the film, and the tension that Christopher Nolan brings in this film was great, and I did enjoy watching it. But I would have only given it a 7 out of 10, but having taken into account all those incredible things that he was able to achieve in this film, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this review. Again, please give me some comments either on Facebook, on this video here on YouTube, on Instagram. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Did you find that lack of character something that you enjoyed in the film, or were you missing it like I was? Just let me know what you guys think. And I also just posted a review for Hunt for the Wilderpeople, which was one of my favorite movies of the past year. And then coming up as my next review will be Spider-Man Homecoming. So be sure to check those out. Thanks so much.